All right, good afternoon. We're back for episode 20. This is June 15th, 2021, and we're doing 10 minutes a day reading from the Anarchist Handbook, organized by Michael Malice. And today we're continuing with Chapter 7, Mikhail Bakunin, from The State and Marxism, 1867, and God and the State, 1870. So we're going to just start at the top of page 69, and here we go. Any state, under pain of perishing and seeing itself devoured by neighboring states, must tend toward complete power. And having become powerful, it must embark on a career of conquest, so that it shall not be itself conquered. For two powers similar and at the same time foreign to each other could not coexist without trying to destroy each other. Whoever says conquest says conquered. Whoever says conquest says conquered peoples, enslaved and in bondage under whatever form or name it may be. It is the nature of the state to break the solidarity of the human race and, as it were, to deny humanity. The state cannot preserve itself as such in its integrity and in all its strength, except it sets itself up as supreme and absolute be-all and end-all, at least for its own citizens, or to speak more frankly, for its own subjects, not being able to improve itself as such on the citizens of other states unconquered by it. From that there inevitably results a break with human, considered as universal, morality, and with universal reason, by the birth of state morality and reasons of the state. And reasons of state. The principle of political or state morality is very simple. The state, being the supreme objective, everything that is favorable to the development of its power is good. All that is contrary to it, even if it were the most humane thing in the world, is bad. This morality is called patriotism. The international is the negation of patriotism and consequently the negation of the state. If therefore Marx and his friends of the German Socialist Democratic Party should succeed in introducing the state principle into our program, they would kill the international. The state, for its own preservation, must necessarily be powerful as regards foreign affairs. But if it is so, I'm going to start that paragraph over. The state, for its own preservation, must necessarily be powerful as regards foreign affairs. But if it is so as regards foreign affairs, it will infallibly be so as regards home affairs. Every state, having to let itself be inspired and directed by some particular morality, conformable to the particular conditions of its existence, by a morality which is a restriction and consequently a negation of human and universal morality, must keep watch that all its subjects, in their thoughts and above all in their acts, are inspired also only by the principles of this patriotic or particular morality, and that they remain deaf to the teachings of pure or universally human morality. From that there results the necessity for a state censorship, too great liberty of thought and opinions being, as Marx considers, very reasonably too from his eminently political point of view, incomparable with that unanimity of adherence demanded by the security of the state. That in reality is Marx's opinion is sufficiently proved by the attempts which he made to introduce censorship into the International, under plausible pretext and covering it with a mask. But however vigilant this censorship may be, even if the state were to take into its own hands exclusively education and all the instruction of the people, as Mazzini wished to do, and as Marx wishes to do today, the state can never be sure that prohibited and dangerous thoughts may not slip in and be smuggled somehow into the consciousness of the population that it governs. Forbidden fruit has such an attraction for men, and the demon of revolt, That eternal enemy of the state awakens so easily in their hearts when they are not sufficiently stupefied, that neither this education nor this instruction nor even the censorship sufficiently guarantee the tranquility of the state. It must still have a police, devoted agents who watch over and direct, secretly and unobtrusively, the current of the people's opinions and passions. We have seen that Marx himself is so convinced of this necessity that he believed he should fill with his secret agents all the regions of the International, and above all, Italy, France, and Spain. Finally, however perfect may be, from the point of view of the preservation of the state, the organization of education and instruction for the people, of censorship and the police, the state cannot be secure in its existence while it does not have, to defend it against its enemies at home, an armed force. The state is government from above downward of an immense number of men, very different from the point of view of the degree of their culture, the nature of the countries or localities that they inhabit, the occupation they follow, the interests and the aspirations directing them. The state is the government of all these by some or other minority. This minority, even if it were 1,000 times elected by universal suffrage and controlled in its acts by popular institutions, unless it were endowed with the omniscience, omnipresence, and the omnipotence which the theologians attribute to God, it is impossible that it could know and foresee the needs, or satisfy with an even justice the most legitimate and pressing interests in the world. There will always be disconnected people, because there will always be some who are sacrificed. Besides, the state, like the church, by its very nature, is a great sacrifice. Besides, the state, like the church, by its very nature, is a great sacrificer of living beings. It is an arbitrary being, in whose heart all the positive, living, individual, and local interests of the population meet, clash, destroy each other, become absorbed in that abstraction called the common interest, the public good, the public safety, and where all real wills cancel each other in that other abstraction, which hears the name of the will of the people. It results from this, that this so-called will of the people is never anything else than the sacrifice and the negation of all the real wills of the population. Just as this so-called public good is nothing else than the sacrifice of their interests. But so that this omnivorous abstraction could impose itself on millions of men, it must be represented and supported by some real being, by living force or other. Well, this being, this force, has always existed. In the church, it is called the clergy, and in the state, the ruling or governing class. And in fact, what do we find throughout history? The state has always been the patrimony of some privileged class or another. A priestly class, an aristocratic class, a bourgeois. The state, okay, I'm just going to start the paragraph over. I apologize. And in fact, what do we find throughout history? The state has always been the patrimony of some privileged class or other. A priestly class, an aristocratic class, a bourgeois class, and finally, a bureaucratic class. When, all the other classes having become exhausted, the state falls or rises, as you will, to the condition of a machine. But it is absolutely necessary for the salvation of the state that there should be some privileged class or other which is interested in its existence. And it is precisely the united interest of this privileged class which is called patriotism. By excluding the immense majority of the human race from its bosom, by casting it beyond the pale of the engagements and reciprocal duties of morality, justice, and right, the state denies humanity, and with that big word, patriotism, capitalized and in quotes, imposes injustice and cruelty on all its subjects as a supreme duty. It restrains, it mutilates, it kills humanity in them, so that, ceasing to be men, they are no longer anything but citizens, or rather, more correctly considered in relation to the historic succession of facts, so that they shall never raise themselves beyond the level of the citizen to the level of a man. If we accept the fiction of a free state derived from a social contract, then discerning, just, prudent people ought not to have any longer any need of government or of state. Such a people can need only to live, leaving a free course to all their instincts. Justice and public order will naturally and of their accord proceed from the life of the people and the state, ceasing to be the providence, guide, and the state ceasing to be the providence, guide, educator, and regulator of society, renouncing all its repressive power, and failing to the subaltern role which Proudhon assigns it, will no longer anything else but a simple business office, a sort of central clearinghouse at the service of society. And we'll go ahead and stop right there at 11 minutes, just cracking into page 72. So come back tomorrow for another 10 minutes reading The Anarchist Handbook, organized by Michael Malice. Get yourself one.